Jamal Calvin saved the day. It was a mixed day for Javier and Brian, and it was another hero's day for Captain Fantastic. All this and more on the semi-final Leg 1 review show. Yeah, people, welcome back to JPL Fan at his semi-final Leg 1 action we are reviewing today. And honestly, it's a carbon copy of what happened in the first leg in the quarterfinals. Honors even in both semi-finals, same scoreline too. But we're going to start, of course, with the first match on the day, which was Arnett taking on last year runners-up Cavalier. Of course, we'll start off with the lineups and starting with Cavalier. No real major surprise. We already know that Barrett was out for the rest of the season, as well as Adrian Reed was nursing an injury, so he's on the bench. Caddy comes into midfield to help, and then what was probably the only real surprise in this lineup is that Jadeen White started ahead of Bartlett. A big surprise there. Not to say that Jadeen White is a bad keeper. In fact, he's very good, one of the better quote-unquote number 2 keepers. But, you know, Bartlett has played most of the big matches, so it's a bit surprising he did not start this one. As for the Arnett side, it was a case if it ain't broke, don't fix it for Xavier Gilbert, as he stuck with a 4-4-2. What he saw brought them to prominence against Portmore, which means it was the same midfield 4 of Shepard, Thomas, Thompson, and Marlon Martin, and then of course Fabian Reed along with Karim Dixon go through the middle. So I guess he was trying to break down the same type of back three what he saw against Portmore for this game against Cavalier. So how exactly the game started out? Well, Arnett started a slightly better. They did get the first shot off when the ball fell to Shepard down roughly 30 yards out, who tried to make a one volley, but it was an easy save by White. Shepard was going to go on to have a very interesting game. We will get back more on him later. But after that, the game completely flipped on its head easily. It was easily the Cavalier show after that, as they quickly got into their rhythm of breaking up plays and striking some counterattacks. The main person that was pulling off these was basically Busy Atkinson. You can see where you get the name Busy from, as he was basically buzzing all about in that final third, not only to lead the counter-attacks, but also drop back in the midfield and help break up the play of the Arnett midfield 4. He was helping to cause turnovers and led to some directness going in the opposite direction, where he himself led many chances. One here is where he found Calvin on the left, who dinked it over to the right, his captain, but the ball was a bit too high. They come again after next turnover. Irvin again for Atkinson, who played a 1-2 with Calvin before he tried a cheeky right outside the foot shot into the bottom left corner, but it just went wide. Frustrations mounting, but they were playing well. Arnett, though, again was having a bit of issue. They were too narrow because of those midfield 4, and they were having a hard time finding the feet of Fabian Reed. Dixon was trying to work out something, but honestly Cavalier marshalling him much better than Portmore did, and he wasn't getting much success. I applauded Gilbert for switching to the 4 midfielders in the game against Portmore, because it caused them to overload that midfield and basically crowd out Marshall as well as the Portmore midfielders. But it's clear that Speed sat back and read that and countered with a good idea of having McCleary, Calvin and Atkinson at times rotating into that midfield to make up the numbers and then cause the turnovers. Clearly width was needed, and it seemed like Gilbert admitted his mistake and made a correction where he brought on quarterfinal substitute and champion Jay Smith roughly in the game just before the 30th minute. He came in for Thompson, and immediately was getting some play down that left wing and helped stretch the field. Not only that, it definitely made their remaining midfielders Martin, Shepard and Thomas much more comfortable, and they're now playing their usual game. Now they're getting a bit more freedom and passing in that middle of the park, and they're now finding the feet of Fabian Reed much better, which eventually led to the first goal of the game. It came to me slightly against the run of play. The ball found itself out wide by Smith, who played back in, and then Shepard found the feet of Reed, who held the ball well. I was able to take the ball back to Jaheim Thomas, who did a shimmy and a shook, and I got past 2 players that led to a stretch shot on the fall, and saw a daisy cutter on the ground somehow, some way, to the shock of the defenders, the spectators, and especially Jadeen White, seeing him get past him into the goal. I honestly could not imagine the shot really getting past him when I saw it in the stands, but of course seeing him back on replay on TV, it was decently well placed. But still, White, who again was a surprise starter here, probably felt that he could have done much better on that. His feet were simply not quick enough to get crossed to cover the shot, and he would probably feel disappointed. But nonetheless, it was 1 goal to Arnett, a goal that came against the run of the play, and it came very close to half-time. He came against the other player because just before that, as I said, Busy was definitely everywhere. All creative was coming through him, and he got a big chance right here when the ball was played slightly behind him, but he still managed to get past his defender to get one-on-one at the angle with Edwards and couldn't get it past him. A good stop by the Arnett keeper, but the ball was still in play and it went out to the left and Arnett was kept sleeping and the ball was played back to Busy, but he miscontrolled it and lost it to the defender. But such tenacity he was displaying all day, he managed to win the ball again in that middle of the box and got off another shot, this time with the right foot, looking for that left hand corner, and it just simply went wide. It was just simply not his day on Cavalier. But again, after the goal, I must give them credit, they kept them heads, and you probably could say it came through their captain, Gadiel Irvin, who was having a field day out on that right. Numerous times he's swinging some balls through his right foot, and it did cause Arnett defense trouble, but I was managed to get by. So why not try the left foot? And that he did. He's swinging the next ball this time from the left foot and deep to the back post, and for his luck and Cavaliers, there was 2 players in white waiting. One of them was Jamaica Calvin, who nodded home a ball in the right hand corner past Edwards and give Cavalier a much deserved 1-all at this point. 15 goals in all competition this season, and I did warn you guys in the previous show that he's the man to watch. 1-all, and it came as an important time because if Cavalier went on 1-0 in that half despite playing so well, I'm quite sure heads would drop. So no more real major chances came at that point. The half came, and as I stated, it was 1-all. Then into the second half we go. Arnett did start the second half much better, I felt. They did look more purposeful in their passing and running. One such case is when the ball was played down the right hand channel for Fabian Reed, who put on the afterburners to pull out all he could to try and keep the ball and get ahead of his defender, but he was matched all the way to the byline. But it seemed that he came at a cost. It was Fabian Reed's last action in the game as he immediately pulled up what appears to be his hamstring, and he had to be substituted. A very disappointing end to one of the better players this season, and you would hope that somehow, although it looked unlikely, that he makes it for the second leg. At this time, Warner Brown came in, who is always a willing runner in that number 9 position, and Arnett was still having a slight better play here in the second half. They were trying to bounce the ball around as they're known to do with their top 4 players, and Shepard, especially who I said had a mixed day, he was keep finding the ball at the top of the D, but he stroked his foot to make a shot. His shot was ballooned way over the bar as if it was struck by a bat. So not much luck going for him there, but it did show just how more comfortable that midfield trio was having now that as they switch more to their traditional 4-3-3. But credit again to Cavalier. They did keep it much tighter in the second half. They did close down more players. Eventually, Cadec came out for Adrian Reed, who you can see that he's not fully fit, but were probably a bit better at snuffing out those chances at the top of the D. And they were good enough to frustrate the Arnett attackers that even Kaim Dixon had to come a bit earlier than probably planned. And they saw Arbine come in, and it wasn't that much changes that happened in that second half. But what about going the opposite direction? Well, again, credit to Arnett as well, is that Cavalier didn't have much chance going forward. They were playing their direct balls as usual, but at this point, you could see that Atkinson was tiring, and they had made a switch in formation where Chanel Thomas came and saw John Morrell having much wider up on the left, and he was also not that much effective. He did manage to wiggle some chances on that left-hand side, as well as Chanel Thomas was a willing runner, and he did cause some chaos in the Arnett defense, but they didn't get any clear-cut chances to put them into the lead. Atkinson eventually came out. I saw the new stylish Stein come in, and I felt him and Thomas did make some positive runs at that Arnett back line, but again, they couldn't get any clear-cut chances. But they did manage to muster one last one, and it came from Jamaica Calvin, the one you would want, who managed to make a positive run up the gut of the Arnett defense, coming onto his left foot, and he saw the goal and the winner open up before his eyes before a tired kick saw the ball also balloon over the bar. It was a missed chance to get him a first leg victory, but nonetheless a good outing for them. We also should mention that Shea Smith also got one of the opposite direction on his left foot as well, but only managed to put Barkley into a good smart save down to his right and see him push across the bar. So you could say honors even is what the game deserved, as both teams kind of neutralized each other in that second half. So again, it finishes 1-all there. So let's look at the stats to get a better understanding of what happened in the game. Arnett had 13 total shots compared to Cavalier 12. Arnett also had 4 shots on target compared to Cavalier's 3. 4 corners for Arnett, 3 for Cavalier. 4 yellow cards to Cavalier as they did their job to clog up that midfield. 1 yellow card to Arnett. Yeah, so I have to give Rudolph props for this one. His team, while not looking exactly the sharpest they have been all season, they did not exactly look that rusty either, and they came up with a clear plan to disrupt that 4-4-2 that Gilbert had waiting. Credit to Gilbert as well. It's no shame to admit that he got it wrong and he switched up formation and personnel much early in the game. I could say that it helps salvage this draw in the end. But it sets up that second leg neatly and we see what happens then. So once more it finished Arnett Gardens 1, Cavalier 1. So we'll move on to the second semi-final, and it will be Waterhouse, of course, taking on Mount Pleasant. The defending champions finally got the chance to come into action, and just like Cavalier, the worry will be if they're too rusty. While Waterhouse, as we stated, came into this game after some impressive victories over Tivoli. So can they muster it again? Well, they would have to deal with one of their better players from that quarterfinal, as Jefferson was out because he was on loan from Mount Pleasant, and you know it goes. He ain't playing against his parent club in a big match like this, so he was out. But the bigger surprise, and it was kept a secret somewhat, as we look into the starting lineup as well as on the bench, that number 15 was missing. Yes, Sandre Fletcher, who was key to them in that second leg against Tivoli, was out, which means that it was a switch up somewhat on the wings. Mitchell went to the right, and Denaro Thomas, who is normally at home in central midfield, is now playing on the left. There saw Andre Smith, who has not played in a while, back into midfield to partner Shemara Booth. And of course, Nicola Christian is back into the team as he sits right underneath Javier Bryant in attack. So yeah, big blows to Waterhouse lineup there. 2 key men out, but I thought these were smart changes by Marcel Gale. Perhaps he was forced, but let us see how it goes. As for Mount Pleasant, they line up into a 4-1-4-1. But there will be some nuances to that formation. Stick around for more on that. Number 1 keeper Shaquan Davis is back between the sticks. But what was more interesting to me that Tevin Shaw and Ramon Howell was playing in that midfield. There was no room for Duxley or Nathaniel James. And of course, Bradford led the line with some help from Daniel Green, Davante Campbell, and Kimoni Bailey. So how this one started out? Well, just like Cavalier surprising me, Mount Pleasant did the same. Rusty be damned, they look very fluent and cool on the ball as the game started. But what was the much bigger surprise? It was that Waterhouse, who many felt got the victory over Tivoli because of their blistering start in both legs, started in the mud in this one. That burst of energy and intensity was nowhere to be seen, and not only that, they looked very timid and nervous on the ball, as they many times they were slow to make their passes, and when they did make their passes, they were just simply unable to control properly. So yes, it was a very nervous start for Waterhouse, and it allowed Mount Pleasant IFL to get into their passing and possession really much quicker. From there, it seemed that they were not controlling the game. Most of the attacks were definitely coming from Mount Pleasant as they were trying to carve out an opening from the left hand side, as Daniel Green and Devontae Campbell was overlaying Javier Brown as they went to many times to go down the byline to try to square into the ball. One such occasion happened when Devontae Campbell managed to get past the young right back and got the ball into the top of the 6-yard box, and found his number 9, Shaquille Bradford, who could not exactly manage to get over the ball and see it balloon over the bar. So the first warning shot in that Devontae Campbell versus Jaheim Brown battle, and Campbell was the victor. But credit to Jaheim Brown, I felt it was a tireless effort by him. He managed to hold off the 2 players as much as he can, and he did get some help from Mitchell, who had to come back, not necessarily his usual game, to try aid his young partner there on the right. But the attacks keep flowing from that left again to the Waterhouse backline. Credit, anything that came into the box was repelled off our corner. But it didn't stop them from control majority of the possession and majority of the play. As I stated to you, that 4-1-4-1, there were some clear nuances to it, as it was only that formation out of position. But once they're in position, Sule McCullough was now playing inverted and saw Tevin Shaw move up much closer to try and help the attackers up front. The only issue though is that he was not necessarily helping Bailey, who was coming in on the right. Blair, who comes in for the injured Dallas into this game, did an excellent job, I felt, keeping him quiet, did not allow him to go down to the byline, and even though he's definitely a left footer, and cut in numerous times. I didn't get any clear sighting on goal, as anytime he steps in, it met Andre Smith there. The only weakness in that first half anybody could argue on Waterhouse team could be Shamar Booth, who I thought looked the most nervous on the ball when in possession. When he has the ball, there was no clear idea what he was to have to do with it, and that is where Denard Thomas' presence in midfield was probably missing. They were having a hard time releasing Mitchell or finding the feet of Brian, as they could not necessarily, connect their passes, as Booth was having a tough time on the ball. But their relentless work sometimes pays off, but Waterhouse was definitely getting themselves more into the game. They were definitely pressing more, and it even led to a good counter. Timothy Bailey somehow found himself at basically the left back position, was trying to look around for a pass, and eventually lost his footing and saw the ball taken off by Mitchell and went burying down at the Mount Pleasant backline before eventually finding his number 9 Javane Bryan, who finally got a clear sighting on goal, which he was waiting on all the first half, released a crack of a shot that fizzed and swerved, and saw the ball beating Davis in goal but not the frame of it. Crack off the crossbar he did and went back out, and a big chance for Waterhouse, and they almost stole the show in the first half. Not much basically happened after that, and the first half ended with Waterhouse basically feeling much more confident how the half ended, and Mount Pleasant probably kicking himself for doing more. They did get the ball in the back of the net, a rebound shot that fell to the feet of Shaquille Bradford, who tucked it away, and while he and all of us were celebrating, the referee flag was waving in the wind. I was definitely outside looking back on the replay. So 0-0 at the half, but Waterhouse was definitely growing in the game. And basically it showed at the start of the second half. That intensity and running that we expected in the first half came to the fore in the second half. From the whistle, they were at it. There were no closing down each player in wide much quicker, and there were no gobbling up any loose balls and causing many turnovers for Mount Pleasant. Even led to the first goal, as Mount Pleasant lost the ball and saw Denard Thomas coming up the left wing and found the feet of Javane Bryan, who held the ball well and then slipped a pass in behind again for his number 10, who did enough, I guess, in the box that he was trying to, turn his defender, but it stumbled on the ball, but he had the presence of mind to backheel to his number 9, who showed that he was a cool customer with that composure, sitting down the defender with his left foot and then stroking home an easy shot with his right. Big goal for Waterhouse, and honestly, it was what I wanted to see from them in the first half. One love for Waterhouse. Mount Pleasant now find out what Tivoli felt. They probably was wondering what happened here, and before they can even assess the goal, another big chance came, this time from the right, that eventually found the ball into the back of the box. And while Javane Bryan was trying to hold the ball, we saw Shamar Bruce streak in, and with a big chance of goal, found the feet of Shaquan Davis, and with a big save. Of course, it was a big chance missed, and when you have the defending champions on the ropes, it is best to give them that knockout punch. They missed that chance. I saw Tabo Whitmore given the opportunity to make a raft of changes. That saw the likes of Nathaniel James and Demario Phillips come into the game to get them a bit more composure on the ball in that midfield to try to avoid that Waterhouse press. And then from there, they seemed to get back into the game. They were now getting more possession closer to the final third, and they were now trying to get the ball into the box more quickly. Again, the centre-back pair and Martins and Simpson stood up, and they keep repelling waves of white shirt attacks. The ball eventually went for a corner, and from the left-hand side, the ball was floated in. It went deep to the back post. It was kept into play, and saw the ball headed back to the top of the 6. At right place and right time as usual, Sule McCullough came in and knocked the ball home. 1-1, and as usual, McCullough always found a way to use his head to save Mount Pleasant out of some certain dangers. 1-1 at this point. I just highlight that miss by Shamar Booth even more. But again, credit to Waterhouse. Yes, they lost concentration on the corner, but they brought it back, and their defensive solidity kept up Mount Pleasant from getting any more clear-cut chances towards the end of the half. But since they were so focused on that defensive solidity, they didn't get much going forward in the other direction. So basically, the game would peter out without any major chances happening after that. I eventually come to a close as a 1-1 draw. But before we go, of course, we have to talk about the referee. I don't always like mention the referee. And while the game wasn't the dirtiest one ever, it was a lot of malicious high foot tackles on anybody per se. I thought the referee could do a bit better job on managing the physicality of the game. I mean, there was even one absolutely NFL like tackle right at the byline in front of the benches that saw one of the Waterhouse players completely cleaned up by the centre back from Mount Pleasant that saw the whole bench got up in arms. and he only managed a yellow card from there. It all led to basically seeing the unfortunate incident to see Javier Bryan, who I thought was having a very good second half and overall playoffs this season. So he got a massive injury that might keep him out for the rest of it. It seemed that it was a shoulder injury, and the original fear is that he dislocated his shoulder. He had to come out, of course, and we wish the ball a speedy recovery. But as I said to you, Waterhouse did their job. The centre-back pairing did their job, and the Waterhouse did enough. The defending champions at bay for a 1-1 draw. So, just dive into the stats to get a clearer picture on the game. Yeah, so Waterhouse had 7 total shots compared to Mount Pleasant's 11. Waterhouse had 2 shots on target, which was probably the goal and a big chance by a boot, and Mount Pleasant had 4 on target. 8 corners to Mount Pleasant, a team that has been one of the most dangerous this season on set pieces. You could imagine they will eventually make one of those count, and that they did. 3 yellow cards to Mount Pleasant, 2 to Waterhouse. I still think the ref could do a bit better job there, and 1 offside obviously went to Mount Pleasant, which is on the Bradford goal. So yeah, Mount Pleasant, not them fluent best, of course. They did have some good possession and passing play throughout the game, but they was at them cleanest. So of course it seemed, as I stated in the previous show, they were a bit rusty. As for Waterhouse, that second half performance is what I expected them from the first half. I'm not sure why they were so nervous in that first half. They came up big for the second half, and despite all their major players missing, the bench, who I thought was the weakest thing all season, stood up immensely. But I must also give special mention. I did not give them enough credit in the quarterfinals. I have to big them up this time. Matthews and Simpson into that centre-back pairing, along with Brown and Blair, did an immense job in keeping up Mount Pleasant. I have to give special nod and probably almost man of the month performance to Jaheim Brown. As I stated, he had a difficult time with Devontae Campbell and Daniel Green, but eventually he played them out of the game. So a big move by that back four, which people thought were by far Waterhouse's weakness all season, and Marshall Gill must be very happy with them. Overall, it basically leaves all to play for, of course, in the second leg, and we're going to have the preview for that later. So yeah guys, that is all here from leg 1 review show. Just like the quarterfinals, all even in leg 1, we come again next Sunday. So again, thank you all for supporting and watching, and if you're new here, please like, subscribe and share as we keep it going to the end of the season. You know, the super final that's coming on May 19. But for anything else on the Jamaican Premier League, you're already at the right place, JPL fan. YouTube, big up on yourself.